So I was scavenging the internet for hockey-related topics, and I came across a trade that I knew about at the time, but I'd forgotten about. And this is one of the, I won't say it's the most bizarre conditional pick ever because people have done some strange things, but it is a very weird conditional pick. Now, I've been making flowcharts for these conditional picks to illustrate because they're like, if X happens, then it's this pick. If Y happens, then it's this pick. This is the flow chart for sort of a normal, typical trade involving a conditional pick. This is the trade that sent Marcus Hannikainen from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Arizona Coyotes. Very simple, very straightforward. If he plays 10 games or more for the Coyotes, the seventh round pick transfers. If he doesn't, then it doesn't. And as it happened, Hannikainen didn't ever play for the Arizona Coyotes, so they didn't have to give away a pick, and that was that. On on February 27th, 2017, the Washington Capitals were in the midst of their second consecutive President's Trophy winning season, but as a franchise, they'd still yet to win a Stanley Cup, and they were getting a little bit desperate to beat the Penguins at this point. From the St. Louis Blues, they acquired defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk and goaltender Phoenix Copley in exchange for Zach Sanford, Brad Malone, a 2017 first round pick, and a 2019 conditional pick. And this conditional pick is what I want to talk about. Bear in mind that before getting into all of this, this pick is not in the forthcoming draft that year. It's not even in the next draft after that. It's three drafts down the line. And also keep in mind that Kevin Shattenkirk played the rest of the season for Washington, and he played in the playoffs, and he didn't have a very good playoffs. And then he left in free agency, was signed by the Rangers, and he was eventually bought out. So keep all that in mind when you witness the haggling that was done between the two psychopaths that were responsible for this trade, Brian McClellan of the Washington Capitals and Doug Armstrong of the St. Louis Blues. So here's the flow chart for this trade, and you compare it with the Hannikainen one, and there's a lot of stuff going on here. So essentially, and again, this haggling is over a pick 3 years in the future, and I'm not kidding, this pick couldn't have become a first, but it could have become anything else. It could have become a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh, or it could have not transferred at all. So it couldn't have been a first round pick, but anything else could have happened with this pick. So for starters, the first question, because when you just have all these conditions typed out in a news article, it's impossible to follow. But when you put it in a flowchart form, you can find out what's going to happen. So the first question is: did the Capitals trade Shattenkirk before he was set to become a free agent on July 1st of 2017? Now, assuming the answer to that is no, and they kept him for the playoffs, which they were expected to do, um, the next question is: did they re-sign him to a contract for the 2017-18 season? If they did, then they owed St. Louis their 2019 second-round pick. If they didn't, then the next question, the third question down the line, did they make the 2017 Eastern Conference Finals? If they did, then we have to know, did Kevin Shattenkirk play in at least half of the games that they played in the first and second round? If he did, then they again have to give their 2019 second round pick. If he didn't, no picks transfer. And if Washington did not make the Eastern Conference Finals, then once again, no picks transfer. Going back to the top, if Washington did trade Shattenkirk before he became a free agent, then a whole different set of circumstances play out. Now, the question is, did they receive a draft pick in the fourth round or earlier? If they didn't, then they just have to send a seventh. If they did receive a fourth or earlier pick, then the pick the pick that transfers is 2 rounds later than the pick they received back in the Shattenkirk trade. So if they got a first, they'd have to pay a third. If they got a second, they have to send St. Louis a fourth. A third would be a fifth, and a fourth would be a sixth. And that is the most bizarre conditional pick, or at least the most convoluted conditional pick that I've been able to find so far. And if you're wondering what actually happened to this pick, we know now that Washington did not trade Shattenkirk at any point, and they lost in the second round to Pittsburgh that year. So in the end, no picks transferred whatsoever. And that is the story of the conditional pick, the conditional 2019 pick, in the 2017 trade of Kevin Shattenkirk to Washington.